Welcome to Jimi Zen Reads. Spike Milligan, The Singing Foot. I have an uncle. His name is Herbert Jam. He was 52. He worked in a laundry. One Christmas Eve, he was homeward bound on a crowded bus when he heard what he thought was the sound of music coming from inside his boot. Indeed, what was to make him famous had happened. His right foot had commenced to sing. Poor Mr. Jam tried to control the volume of sound by tightening his bootlace. It only succeeded in making the voice go from a deep baritone to a strangled tenor. At the next stop, Mr. Jam had to get off. He walked home to the sound of his right foot singing "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen." Fortunately, Mr. Jam knew the words and mimed them whenever people passed by. It was all very, very embarrassing. For 3 days he stayed off work. His favourite TV programmes were ruined by unexpected bursts of song from the foot. He did manage to deaden it by watching with his foot in a bucket of sand. But, alas, from this practice he contracted a rare foot rot, normally only caught by Arabs and camels. Worst was to come. The foot started singing at night. At 3 a.m. he was awakened with the selections from The Gondoliers, Drake is Going West, and A Whiter Shade of Pale. He tried Mrs. Helen Ferg, a lady who was known to have exorcised poltergeists and evil spirits. She tied a sprig of witch hazel round his ankle, intoned druidic prayers, and burnt all his socks in the bath. But it wasn't long before the strains of the Desert Song came lilting up his trouser leg again. On the recommendations of his doctor, he visited the great Harley Street right foot specialist, Sir Ralph Fees. "Come in, sit down," said the great man. "Now, what appears to be the trouble?" "It's my right foot." "Of course it is," said the cheery Sir Ralph. "And," he went on, "what appears to be the trouble with our right foot?" "It sings." Sir Ralph paused, but still went on charging. "You say your foot sings?" "Yes, it's a light baritone," said wretched Jam. Sir Ralph started to write. "I want you to go see this psychiatrist," he said. At which very moment Uncle Herbert's foot burst into song. "Just a minute," said Sir Ralph. "I'll get my hat and come with you." The medical world and Harley Street were baffled. For the time being, he had to make do with a surgical soundproof boot and a pair of wax earplugs. Occasionally, he would take off his boot to give the lads in the pub a song, but Mr. Jam was far from happy. Then came the beginning of the end. EMI gave him a 500 million contract for his foot to make records. A special group was called The Grave. The billing was Mr. Jam with one foot in the grave. He was the new sensation of the year, but it became clear that it was the right foot that got all the fame, not Mr. Jam. EMI opened a bank account for the right foot. While his poor left foot wore an old boot, his right foot wore expensive purple alligator shoes from Carnaby Street, which cost £50 a toe. At parties, he was ceaselessly taking off his shoe to sign autographs. Mr. Jam was just an embarrassment to his right foot. One night, in a fit of jealousy, Mr. Jam shot his foot through the instep. It never sang again. Mr. Jam returned to the obscurity of his job in the laundry. He was 52, happy, and now he only walked with a slight limp. The end.